Greetings, Shabbat Shalom. It's yet another Friday, and it's almost time
Yes.
for Shabbat. So it's time for the Israel Report. We, of course, have Elon with us. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm very well, thank you, Jay. Tired but alive. So let's begin, shall we?
First of all, I mean, what's that pattern you have behind you? It's very
Ah,
fascinating.
yes. That's the BBC test card from 1978, I think.
Oh,
Um, and I was as we were uh, discussing earlier, you know that this, of course, President Trump is uh, proposing to sue the BBC. So I thought it'd
They,
be nice to
they
see.
might be using that pattern again.
Yes, yes, they might indeed, and that might be on all the time. Um, so especially as
All
they're
right.
already losing a lot of subscribers, people don't want to pay the license fee, uh, so they're losing their revenue base in that way as well.
So even back then, the BBC employed many clowns in their production of their
Yes,
their their TV.
yes, actually, there's that young lady there, that young girl there. She's now probably in her 60s, and she took another photograph of herself with that clown doll that she had. She kept it all of her, all through those years, and yeah,
What kind of
she's
pension
now
does
in
that
this.
clown draw from
I
from
don't
the
know.
United Kingdom?
I really don't know. I mean, if we want to find out how much pension clowns get, really, we need to ask the UK Prime Minister, I think.
Yeah,
I
this is
remember.
true. This is very true.
Oh,
Anyway, no more jokes. Please tell us what's going on in Israel.
Okay,
Let
a
us
few
let's
things.
catch up.
Okay, that I've been because I troll what do you call it, doom scroll a lot of Israel and Jewish accounts as well on X, as well as the some of the Israeli media. Now this is an interesting thing. I don't know how many. Apparently this isn't this hasn't been in a lot of the headlines, but there was a legal breakthrough that went on in the US here, actually, that was reported in one of my Israel following accounts. And this is to do with the family of Ari Fuld. He was a Jewish father and activist, and he was murdered in a Palestinian terror attack. And now he's now won in the US Supreme Court for the first time, it says here, that the Palestinian Authority can be held legally
mm.
accountable for facilitating terrorism. That means they can't hide behind any claims of immunity anymore. And so this means that they can be sued. The courts have decided they would recognize jurisdiction. So this could be very interesting. It would be nice if they could sue Mahmoud Abbas personally, actually, because his policies encourage these terror attacks, his pay for slay policies and things. So
Mm.
that is quite interesting. I don't know how that will work out practically, but it would be that certainly is an interesting development. Now, the next thing that I came across was about something that happened in Norway, and this is Norway. Turns a Holocaust memorial into an anti-Semitic rant. It says here on the eve of Kristallnacht, Norway's taxpayer-funded Centre Against Racism is hosting a so-called anti-racism event that equates Zionism with racism, accuses Israelis of genocide, invites anti-Israel activists to speak in place of Jewish community leaders. And this is all endorsed and confirmed by Norway's Prime Minister. And it says here that Jewish leaders in Oslo call this absolutely unbelievable, a grotesque rewriting of history that turns the victims of Nazi hatred into the villains of today. That was fairly horrible. I mean, Norway's really gone to the dogs. It really has. Another thing that came up here was literally in University College of London, one of their lecturers, Dr. Samar Makusi, she literally dredged up a Jewish a blood libel against Jews from the 1840s, the Damascus libel, as it's known as, where Damascus Jews were accused of having murdered a Christian monk and used his blood to make festival bread. And some of her facts were definitely messed up, but she presented this blood libel as fact. She's now been sacked, actually, and she should have been. But no surprises, this person actually had previously worked for UNRWA. So that how these people get into college staff, I don't know.
I don't think they do
There's a,
background checks anymore.
yeah, they certainly don't. Good grief, you know. Um, maybe there's an article here or a brief report on Giuliani, you know, the Syrian leader that was one that is a former ISIS member, with whom, you know, he was seen in conference with President Trump very recently. But apparently, even though there's this ceasefire between Israel and the Lebanon, something is rather dangerous is unfolding. It says here in the background that Giuliani has been supplying Hezbollah with weapons. In fact, it says here they've got more weapons from Syria than they've had from Iran in the last 18 years. So he's supplying them big time. So they're rearming. He's rearming Hezbollah. So that's you can see that's going to be a problem in the future. Um,
I didn't realize Turkey and Iran and Hezbollah were friendly.
oh, I mean, look, Turkey just will help anybody that wants to destroy Israel, I'm sure.
Mm.
Um, he's a nasty piece of work, Erdogan. He really is.
Yeah.
Um, and there's trouble brewing there. We're going to have some problems with him in the very near future, I think. That's more to that later. But and here's another one that was also reported in over here, and this is a Canadian who was born in Israel, right? She applies for a new passport. Because she's also a Canadian citizen now. She was born in Kfar Saba in Israel. Now, Kfar Saba is not too far from Netanya. It's about halfway down the country between where I live in the north, and about 30 miles from Tel Aviv, actually, northward of Tel Aviv or something like that. Anyway, she applied for a Canadian passport, and she was told that she can't have, you know, because on your passport you're supposed to have the country of birth, you know. She was told she can't have Israel on her passport as her country of birth because of
Ugh,
political conflict.
ugh.
You know that anyway. She could have anything else. I mean, if you claim if you claim that you're Palestinian or something, there's no problem there.
Yeah.
But you know, Kfar Saba isn't even located in any disputed territory. So there should be absolutely no reason. Kfar Saba is as Israeli as Tel Aviv in that sense. Isn't there's never been any debate over whether it's part of Israel or it's included in with the territories, you know. So I think eventually, after taking the passport authority to court, she's actually managed to get her passport with her country of birth on it now. But that's absolutely disgusting. You know, you've got Palestine, which is a non-existent state that's never existed, and you can put that on, but you can't have Israel that's been around for 80 odd years as an independent state, an actual state. Hmm. Okay, so onward a bit more. This one was is entitled Israel-Turkey confrontation escalates as mediators struggle for breakthrough. So this tension again between Israel and Turkey. and which is rising because of a number of different things. One of them is that Israel recently presented to President Trump and the American negotiating team all the evidence that Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists are sitting in Turkey and financing and directing terror activities against Israeli targets, not just in Israel and not just, but also in Europe. And so that's one that's causing a problem. Now, Turkey is not happy about this because it's meant that America has agreed with Israel to block Turkey from being part of the monitoring force and not Turkey's not going to be allowed to have any soldiers in Gaza, and Turkey have been preparing 2,000 of them to go in there, but that's been vetoed now. Another thing that's ticking Turkey off is that Israel now is started to cooperate more and is being drawn into a deeper relationship with Greece and Cyprus, of course. And there's this old rivalry there, and we're selling update, our high-tech anti-missile systems and other stuff to Greece. So this is escalating things a little bit.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yeah.
Historically speaking, has Greece and Israel had good relations overall? I mean, they both are not very friendly to Turkey.
Yes, I mean there is a shared dislike of Turkey, I think. But having said that, though, in the past, before Erdogan got involved, got on the scene, Israel actually had joint defense exercises with Turkey. They were far less hostile. But Erdogan and his crazy stuff have really made things difficult. I mean, Turkey used to be a favorite place for Israelis to go on holiday. There was good relationship there, but it's all gone since Erdogan got in. Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
there's a bit more on this. It says here, Jerusalem strengthens ties with Athens and Nicosia amidst Turkish unease. And it says that the Prime Minister Bibi, his military secretary, recently paid a visit to Athens, and this came amid growing concern in Turkey over the tightening security ties between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. And it talks about the investment here, of course, in Greece in buying Israeli defense systems as part of a project in going ongoing project in Greece called Achilles Shield, which is their version, I think, of Iron Dome, I suppose. At least they haven't called it
Mm.
Achilles Heel, which would be a bit more. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's 3 billion euros just for a start. They're splashing out on air defense systems. But this is also more of a what's a slap in the face for Turkey because the Greek defense minister is opposing Turkey's inclusion in this European Union's SAFE program, which is a security and defense cooperation among EU member states. So that's also upsetting Turkey. But in Turkey, they're seeing all of this as a direct provocation, and they're accusing Israel of being the driving force behind this Greek initiative to exclude Turkey from the SAFE program. And also, Turkey are warning against the deepening security alliance between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. So this is not a happy path. You can see that there's going to be some problems here. But also, Greece wants to buy, and Cyprus want to buy our natural gas. So this is good for us economically as well. So yeah, I think also the Netanyahu is doing all of this in order to send also a warning to Ankara, to Turkey, that they're not going to be allowed to get away with the things that they're trying to do. Because of course we may have mentioned previously that Cyprus, northern Cyprus, the bit that Turkey invaded and is occupying illegally, um, has is been filled with Hamas training bases and all kinds of Turkish hardware, which could interfere with shipping in the Mediterranean. So, you know, so that's brewing up and boiling up nicely. Um, and just recently, actually, there was a couple of days ago, there was an earthquake in Cyprus. It wasn't a huge one, about 5.3 or something like that. But it was felt over here. I didn't feel it, but maybe I was probably asleep by then. We do get the odd earthquake here, but this brought something else up in the press here, and it says, earthquake. This is the Israeli press. It says earthquake catastrophe looms as Israel remains dangerously unprepared. Now, a lot of the buildings, the more modern buildings here now, are designed to be earthquake resistant, but there's a lot of old ones that were built maybe in 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s. They built a lot of stuff in the 50s and 60s because of immigration. There's a lot of, I wouldn't call it jerry built, but you know, construction that was put up quickly to accommodate uh, a large amount of immigrants. And it was not what you'd call super quality. It's lasted, but it's not the world's best. And many of these, I wouldn't like to be in one if there was an earthquake. Put it that way. I'm not even sure about our own building, but they're warning here about even tsunami warnings. Now, a few years ago, across all along the beachfront in our town, all these signs started popping up, about beware tsunami, and it would say something like a safe zone would be, yeah, only 2.5 kilometers away or something like, if there's a tsunami, and you're on the beach, you can kiss goodbye to yourself, because really you wouldn't get away from it if really if it came in that fast. But however, this there's a professor here that's been warning about uh, while an earthquake in Greece or Cyprus probably won't produce a serious tsunami, the rest of a lot Israel sits right on this thing called the Great African Rift Valley. There's a huge fault line that runs right all the way up through Israel, right through the Jordan Valley, and if you live in the Jordan Valley area, this could be, an earthquake within the Great Rift would be actually very serious indeed. And this guy says that Israeli citizens face exceptional exposure to earthquake damage from the Syrian African fault line. And usually there's one really big serious earthquake here on average about every century. So the last one was in 1927. So, they're saying that statistically we could be due for another one. And but many buildings and public buildings and residential things are really unprepared, and also response to these things, the response preparations are inadequate. And he's saying here that if there was a something like a 7.5 Richter scale earthquake, this is the one in a century one. Um, that he said, look at what happened previously in 1927. There was one in Safed or Sfat, as they call it over here, and it killed 5,000 people. Um, a couple of centuries earlier, there was also a severe earthquake in the Bekaa Valley. That's a bit north of here. That's Lebanon. But of course, the place was a lot less populated then. I mean, in 1927. So they're projecting now a 7.5 earthquake uh, centered on Beit Sha'an. Now, Beit Sha'an is at the bottom end of the Sea of Galilee.
Mm.
It's one of the hot. It's very hot down there as well. It's a hot, humid place with a fantastic ruined city, which I don't think you've seen yet, Jay. Which you must. Then you come over again. We need to do some filming there, I think. But
I'm
the projection. Sorry, yeah, you'd
definitely
like
want to
it.
do that. I'd love to do that as long as it's in the
But
spring when it's not that hot.
yes. Well, maybe we can that can happen. I don't know. But there's the scenario this guy's projecting is 16,000 fatalities,
Oh,
6,000 severe injuries, and approximately 377,000 evacuations.
mm.
Additionally, he says cheerfully, 10,000 buildings would collapse with tens of thousands sustaining major structural damage. So there's words of cheer for us in the next 2 years.
I,
I hope.
Elon, maybe you could clarify something because El California itself gets tons of earthquakes every single year. Small ones, not necessarily
Yeah,
large ones, but how many earthquakes does Israel as a whole get? Does it get many per year, or is it stretched out
I,
further on a timeline geologically?
I, I have been here when there's been tremors a couple of times. Maybe I could count them on one hand, and you could feel it. I felt the apartment building move a little bit, and that was, I think, the last one I remember feeling. Apparently, it was centered somewhere just north of the Lebanese border, but that was definitely very perceivable. The one last night, I mean, I've slept through some of them, so I've not always felt it, but what was the question again?
The question was basically how frequent are earthquakes in Israel?
We've had some probably minor tremors uh, about once every year or something,
Okay.
but roughly speaking. But of course, biblically speaking, you've also got these uh, records, even in the Bible. Now I'm trying to think of the which where it talks. One of them, it talks about 2 years after the shaking. Now I can't remember. It's gone out of my mind now where it was. But there was one of the minor prophets opens up with this.
Mm.
So these earthquakes have been going on for years. In fact, some of the architectural features when they were building the temple, where they layered things, wood and stone layers, that's got something to do with making them more earthquake resistant. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because that was kind of my second question is like with all the ancient structures in Israel, um, obviously they've been through many earthquakes.
Mm.
And the warning that you just had from the geologist, it seems like 10,000 people might be evacuated and many
No, no,
homes collapsed.
tens of thousands.
Tens
They're,
of
they're
thousands.
talk
Okay.
they're talking nearly 400,000 evacuations, 10,000 buildings, projecting
Oh,
16,000 fatalities and 6,000 severe injuries.
So
That's quite a toll on the health
that,
system and other things and the emergency services. Yeah.
uh, that's
y-
absolutely huge. But my I guess my follow-up question would be, so Israel is not building up to the standard of making sure that their buildings are earthquake at least
Well,
resistant.
oh, the more recent ones definitely are, but some of the older ones from the 50s, 40s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s, that, obviously technology to deal with these things has improved over the decades, but there was a lot of cheap housing put up when the state was first, came into being again, and
Understood.
because it was cheap immigrant housing, and this kind of technology to make buildings more earthquake resistant simply didn't exist then. So, and there's a lot of that kind of, or there used to be a lot of that kind of construction in Nahariya. And it's all, not only
Mm.
is it less earthquake resistant, it's less missile resistant as well. Some of them are the walls are like, paper thin concrete walls. You could knock a hole in them with a sledgehammer.
yeah.
Oh,
Elon,
understood.
yeah, the earthquake you're talking about was during the reign of Uzziah, and that's
That's the
mentioned in
one. Yeah,
Amos 1,
yeah,
1 and Zechariah
that's
12:5.
it.
apparently it was so huge. You can tell by the walls that fell in Old Jerusalem. They estimate it was a 7.8.
Oh, that's big, yeah. In
Yeah,
fact, the city I mentioned, Beit Sha'an, it was or Scythopolis it was called by the Greeks. That was actually probably abandoned after a number of earthquakes. That's what it. That's why it ceased being a viable city. I think it got a bit shook up
mm,
and it had too
Understood.
much damage. Yeah, so that's just. I mean, it's a little. Of course, we know from also Zechariah that at some point there's going to be an earthquake that will split the Mount of Olives in
yeah,
down the
yeah.
middle. So,
That,
you
yeah,
know,
and incredibly, there is a fault line right there.
yes, runs right through the Mount of Olives as well. So, but all up the Jordan Valley, from the Dead Sea onwards, going right up to the north of it, this fault line runs right through the whole country.
Hmm, interesting.
Okay, next item. Okay, it says here Israel confirms it is examining alternatives to US security aid. So, since I think this is particularly since the Biden regime, and how it really revealed how vulnerable we are, in that sense, to changing opinions in Washington. It says in the past decade, the US has transferred to Israel. Oh, sorry, aid transfers to Israel have been directed mainly towards our security needs, and under the current agreement, Washington provides Israel with about $3 billion a year, which we use exclusively to buy products from the American defense industry. It wasn't always like that in the past. We had a bit more freedom with it, what we could spend it on, but now in Israel anyway, we've begun looking at different ways of, or at least moving away from this model. Obviously, the Biden thing taught us a lesson that really we dare not be too dependent. We have to be able to produce our own munitions and all this other stuff as well, just in case. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has hinted on just this Thursday gone that he wants to reduce Israel's reliance on US security aid. And he said that, the direction he wants to go in is for greater independence, and he expects to be making some major announcement about that soon. We used to have
To,
more freedom in the past. Go on, sorry.
yeah, to your point, exactly that. I mean, the Biden administration did kind of start this along, but I mean, in your opinion, Elon, also with the Trump administration warming up to, let's call it the Arab coalition, wanting to push his Abrahamic Accord, I'm not so sure that this administration is completely friendly to the idea of Israel being able to protect itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've also mentioned this previously as well, that it can have the effect of constraining our operational freedom in some cases to act quickly or decisively, and that's not something that over in this neighborhood, it's a bad neighborhood,
Yeah,
and sometimes you don't want to wait
yeah.
to obtain permission from Washington to pull out the baseball bat and give the neighbors a good beating, when they threaten you. Um,
That's a
so,
very unique comparison. So are you stating that Israel is much like perhaps Compton or
oh,
Inglewood
sir.
in are you comparing Israel to Compton in here in LA, the rough side of the tracks?
Oh, it is a bad neighborhood. This, let's face it. I mean, uh, we have so. I think just about everybody wants. The Egyptians don't really like us. We have a peace treaty with them, but I'm sure they'd be quite happy if we disappeared. Syria, of course, the Jolani regime. I'm sure they'd be very happy if we disappeared. The Jordanians, maybe a little less, because they know if we disappeared, they would collapse, almost certainly. But Iran, of course. Well, the Iranian people might be friendly, but the regime isn't. So we've got a lot of, and Turkey, of course, that don't like us. Most of North Africa doesn't like.
I mean, I was just pointing to, your two immediate neighbors, the West
Yeah,
Bank and the Gaza Strip.
and of course there's all that as well, you know, and so and of course most of Europe doesn't like us now. They all want to have this. Many of them have declared that they want to support the idea of a Palestinian state, which really
Right.
means, you know, not another state, but in place of Israel.
Right.
So, we have to be able to be more independent. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway, this article closes with that debates are now underway in both the Israeli defense and diplomatic establishments to see what kind of form we want future agreements to take or future assistance. I don't know how many people know this, but even though um, America has been giving us this money every year, one, it does go back into the American economy. It's almost immediate because we're buying stuff from America.
Right.
But um, I mean, Trump has often said that, the amount of what's the word, of benefit that America gets from Israeli intelligence against, particularly in regards to potential terror events, is well worth what, they get far, far more out of that 3.8 billion than the actual cost of than the actual monetary cost. America gets it with interest in a sense
Yeah.
by the amount of benefit they get from
Yeah.
Israeli intelligence.
Hmm.
Yeah, so uh, there's a possibility that there may be that there's two kind of models that they're thinking about. Um, And one of them is that there may be some kind of bilateral economic cooperation in replacing this aid model, or some kind of joint production framework for weapon systems, which could be interesting because, President Trump wants this golden dome idea. Um, so uh, that would be interesting to see how that works out.
Hmm.
Um, Okay, and finally, oh no, oh no, there's actually no three more items. Sorry. Yeah, I might. There's a very long one here. Well, I'll cut it down to a very brief thing. That apparently Iran is preparing for a 2,000 missile launch against Israel. It has been reported. So that hopefully, well, no, not hopefully, they're hoping to launch an attack that overwhelms our missile defense system. That's if they can. And they've also been hiding, apparently, stockpiles of enriched uranium from the international inspection team. So that promises future events of interest. Actually, I don't know if people know this, but Iran has got terrible problems with water shortages because of
Yeah.
lack of investment.
Mhm.
They kept spending all their money, of course, on trying to destroy us. And the problem is now is that the lack of investment and neglect has meant that even their the water sources that feed Tehran are almost completely exhausted, which means there's even the possibility of them having to actually abandon the
Evacuate.
capital,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy. But when they sources from within Iran have said that years ago they should have begun water rationing because of this problem. This problem's been
Yeah.
been
Brewing.
forecasted for years, and that they may begin water rationing very, very soon. But when you think about it, it's not just drinking water, of course. If you're living in a big city, yes, it's bad enough that you can't get water to drink from your tap regularly all day long. But the worst thing, probably, well, almost as bad, is the sewage problem, because of course you need water to flush
Right.
sewage away. So, I mean, if you cut off the water and people are only allowed to use it for 4 or 5 hours a day or less, it's Tehran will start to smell very bad very fast, and it will be very unpleasant to live in an apartment block where 18 of the hours you don't have water for washing, for flushing the
Yeah.
toilet, or anything like that. It would be rather
Yeah.
bad. Uh,
Leon?
yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think that the Tehran regime has to stir up some kind of conflict? Hope it doesn't get too far with Israel in order to divert the terrible mismanagement that you're talking about. It's like, oh, we got an external enemy, we got to fight because otherwise they could be overthrown by their own people, correct?
Yes, there is. I mean, I think that the regime is teetering because I mean, people will put up with a lot, but when they start to, when you're backed against the wall, when you've got the regime has so mismanaged things that people could end up dying of thirst.
Yeah,
Well, you've got nothing left to lose then.
yeah,
So, this may be one of the things that pushes the things over the edge and starts a full-blown revolution. And that's what really Iran needs. And I hope it does topple this evil regime they've got. I really do.
oh Lord, yeah,
I mean, it's horrible. It's so oppressive and evil. But it can't last much longer because the economy is in a mess because of international sanctions, and of course they've wasted all their money on trying to destroy us and feeding terrorists and promoting terror movements. There comes a point when the economy just grinds to a halt.
yeah.
So we shall see. The last item then is there's just another two that's two parts to it. Just recently, there's been a bill submitted by one member of the Knesset, which proposes applying Israeli sovereignty to the cave of the patriarchs in Hebron. Because for a long, long time, though things have been getting a little better recently, there have been restrictions on Jewish visits and worship at the site. So this guy wants to formalize and regularize the whole thing and make sure that Jewish access is significantly improved. And according to this bill, the entire compound area, which is some parts of which are currently only open to Jews 10 days a year, will be transferred to the jurisdiction of the Kiryat Arba Council. Kiryat Arba is basically it's the Jewish part of Hebron. Um, so if that jurisdiction is transferred to the city council, it means that Jews can have access all the time, and this is it says here they want to remove the restrictions imposed on Jews since the days of foreign occupation and to restore the site's historical and national status as an open and accessible center of prayer for Jewish people. They said, even though since the Six-Day War, Jews have been starting, when they started to pray again at the site, full Israeli sovereignty has never been applied, and the site operates under various administrative and security restrictions. So that's interesting. In combination with that, there's another article I think in the same publication, where Jewish groups have started to been up for quite some time now, buying Arab properties in Hebron to start to, because of course Hebron was a Jewish city. In fact, there was a massacre there in 1929, I think. There was a pogrom against Jews there, but they got expelled, of course, because of the political situation and everything. But now there's a move. There's been a move for a while to bring more Jews in there and to bring it back to being a Jewish city again. And one of the things they've been doing that Jewish groups have been organizing to buy back properties. And so that they bought about 8 buildings so far. This is an expensive process, but they also have to be very careful because one of the things that but recently there's been more Arabs that want to actually leave Israel. They can, particularly very recently, because they can see what's happened in Gaza. I mean, Hebron's always it's been a flashpoint area for a number of decades now. But these people have been buying Arab buildings with cash, transferring them to Jewish ownership and revitalizing the Jewish fabric of the city, it says here. But one of the interesting things about this is that it says that when they do this, when they buy an Arab property, they sometimes literally have to smuggle the previous owners out of the area because they may end up. I don't know if you know this, but in some places, like I think in the Palestinian Authority, the Abbas controlled areas, it's if you sell property to Jews, you can end up getting killed. So they
Mm.
sometimes secretly have to smuggle these people out into Europe or wherever. That's very interesting. So there's a definite move there to try to uh, reinvigorate the place and bring more Jews into the city, which would change the whole atmosphere in the place, I think. So anyway, that's the last thing for today. I hope that was informative. There you
Thank
go.
you
That's
so
the end
much,
of.
Elon.
Right.
Until next week, this has been
Yes.
the Israeli Report. God bless.